I think One Nation's been the only consistent political party for the last 20 years.
They're not talking about you. All right, well, let me tell you, One Nation is talking about you.
It's like the media's run away from One Nation. They're too scared to ask us any questions, mainly because we're straight talkers and we've got the answers.
This is like a call to arms. You guys need to start making the real decisions and who you're going to vote for.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the ExCandidates. My name is Stephen Tripp and I'm here with Adam Zahra. How you going, Adam?
I'm pretty good, Stephen. How you going?
Good, thank you. And on tonight's show we have Faye Aspiotis. She was the One Nation candidate for Cowper. How are you tonight, Faye?
Fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Welcome aboard.
It's our pleasure. Yeah, you did very well in that election. Can you tell us about your experience? Firstly, what motivated you to run in the first place? Because you're not a career politician, just like us. You just off the street.
Yeah,
into the frying pan.
A school teacher. Okay. Yeah, so lost my job because of the vaccine mandates, and Pauline was quite vocal, saying, my body, my choice. And I think she used a few swear words. And so she resonated with me because I just thought, wow, well, that's how I feel. And, so I stood up and applied and didn't even tell my husband. It was funny. I just
Was he shocked?
Well, I didn't tell him until I got an interview with One Nation and then said, oh, guess what, But he was very supportive, so that was good. Yeah.
Now I'm trying to remember if I asked my wife or not. Maybe I did the same thing. Okay. It was a whirlwind time. I know I lost my job as well. Was it an incremental thing for you? Like, could you see it coming, or was it just out of the blue, you're out of work?
I guess I had a month or two to really go, wow, this is happening. They are trying to force us. I felt like it was blackmail. And, I guess I didn't want to lose my job. I worked hard to get that permanent teaching job and loved my job. I'm a maths and science teacher. And but at the same time, I've never given in to bullies. And that's what I felt like. I felt like I was being bullied. And just didn't like that either for my kids' future, because I thought, well, my kids are still at school. I've got 4. And I thought if it was, if they were finishing school and going to university, they would be locked out at the moment because there was lots of talk about universities mandating it as well. So I felt like I had to do something. I had to stand up and fight because it felt like everything was being taken from, their future. So, yeah. So and it was good. It was a positive, something positive that I could do. And yeah,
I definitely think that the story of the unvaccinated has not been told, because we just say, oh, we lost our job and we decided to run, but there's a lot more behind that, like just the mental anguish that you have to go through. Firstly, making the decision: am I going to get vaccinated? Am I not going to get vaccinated? And I'm sure that people that did get vaccinated went through a very hard decision themselves. None of us really knew what we were doing is correct, but to be put under that sort of pressure and to think that you've worked hard in your career to get to a certain point and then suddenly it's just taken away from you is I don't think that's been fleshed out enough. That process of going and getting to the point where you actually finally lose your job. For me, it was like quite a few months. It was probably about maybe 4 or 5 months of that process. You could see it coming, and eventually when it does happen, you're just like, how am I going to support my family? How am I going to, support I had a 2-month-old daughter. Like, what am I going to do now?
That's right. Yeah. What am I going to do now? That was the big question. I too had the same kind of thing. I'm lucky, like I'm self-employed. But what happens is I'm reliant on like contract business, So all my work depended on having if my contractors who held my contract would let me work. So every night I was on the computer looking at the legislation that Brad Hazzard would have been putting out to see the loopholes in which I could work. Lucky with some of the work, and I have a security license holder, so I was able to put a lot of the work down to safety, security, and mental health. So because I only put blinds and doors in and stuff like that, security doors, what happens is it's blinds is for privacy and mental health, and security doors are for security, to make the home safe. So people being home more often needed to be like safe. So I was able to I had to convince contract holders that I work with to let me work because I can work due to the way that I could decipher the legislation. But in cases like yourself, where blocks of industry were mandated to do it, I think that was the biggest, that was the scary thing. And I could understand what would be stressful. Like, you had no real leg to stand on, did you?
No, and the emails just kept coming, the bullying, I felt, you know, and to the point where it said, you know, if you haven't told us by the 8th of November, and then if you turn up to school and we will ask you to leave, and if you don't leave, we will call the police.
Wow.
Yeah, wow.
So, and my kids were still going to that school and they're unvaccinated. So it made no sense. Why am I suddenly so dangerous that I can't go to that school, but they can?
The worst thing about it, Faye, was that you could go to Woolworths, vaccinated or unvaccinated. It didn't matter. So you could go to Woolworths, you can go to the post office, you could go to the bank. So you can interact with all these different people. Either side of the story. It's not, because it's really just not anymore about the vaccination, say, right? So what happens is, but you could interact with all this, and then all of a sudden you couldn't go to work. So how does it everything else that you could do, and then you weren't allowed to go to work? It just baffles me. You know, you just can't believe it. So that was and then how do you take it seriously? If you have obviously you're a critical thinker, you can actually think outside the box just that little bit. Even you go, well, I can do this, and this, but I can't do that.
Yeah, that's right. It made no sense, and I don't think it was ever supposed to. You know, we were just being punished for not complying.
Well, look at what happened in Queensland. They're allowed to go back to school now, but they lose $18,000 over the next however many years or something like that.
That's right. Ridiculous.
Yeah. So what is your background in teaching?
Yeah, so maths and science, but before then I studied chemical engineering. So that's what I did straight out of Year 12. And then I worked as a hydrographer for about 10 years.
So what is that exactly?
So hydrography is the measurement of water, so rivers and wastewater, some weather stations, things like that.
Yeah, okay. And how long were you in teaching for?
About 10 years as well. Yeah.
So once you got into the campaign mode, what were some of the things that you learnt along the way, and what are some of the things that you probably would do differently if you were to run again?
That's a big question, hey? I found some of the best things that I guess I did on the campaign was, standing at the front of supermarkets because there's a lot of little towns in my electorate. So standing at the front of the supermarket and just having chats to people just face to face and introducing myself, and had a few helpers with me. And we would also go and talk to all the businesses and go and introduce and have a chat and see if they had any questions. And I think that personal approach worked really well. Aside from that, I went along to all the rallies as well, and it was twofold. It was amazing to meet so many like-minded people, but it was also heartbreaking with so many out of work and going through the same thing that I was. But it felt good to represent them.
And when you compare Cowper to Sydney electorates like Adam and I represented, it's a vast, massive area. How do you cover that sort of ground?
I wore my van out, there's no doubt. So it goes from Port Macquarie up to Coffs Harbour and then out to Dorrigo. It's a very big area. Yeah. Yeah.
And I can imagine that all those areas that are within Cowper are quite unique to each other as well. It's not just one blanket area.
No, well, there's lots of coastal towns, and then there's also bush towns and dairy and farming land as well. Yeah. So Yeah, quite diverse. And then, you've got your big city type centres of Coffs Harbour and Port Macquarie as well.
One thing I've got a pollster. His name is Sam, and he looks at he loves going through all the data and everything. And he told me that in Kempsey you polled about 14%. Why do you think it was so high there in Kempsey?
Well, Kempsey's my town. That's where I worked. It's where I played netball. It's where my kids go to school and play sport as well. And I had a lot of local good people helping me at the pre-polling booth that was open for the 2 weeks leading up to election day. So I just, that, like I said, that's my town. But there's more to the story with Cowper, and I guess it will come out. It was supposed to happen a few weeks ago, actually, in Parliament, where there's going to be a bit of a look at some of the results with the AEC.
Oh.
Yeah, so I don't know how much I should say about it. Could be a big scoop. It depends when are you putting this.
This will go up straight away, pretty much. So
yeah, so maybe
we can have you back on to fill in the gaps.
Yeah, because my electorate made the Ben Fordham. Is that his name?
Yeah, all right.
GB.
Was that with all the green ballot cards that have been thrown out in the bin and things like that?
Yes.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, I mean, we don't have to talk too much about it because obviously we don't want to interrupt the investigation. No. But we would definitely like to have you on, even on the People's Voice, even after we could put you on and just catch up with the results of all that. That'd be really good, actually, because there was a few electorates that got caught out with that.
Yes, there's a bit of controversy. I'll just say one thing, that there was one particular pre-poll where apparently I got 0 votes.
Oh, really?
Yes. So
that's interesting. They're polling almost 10% everywhere else.
Yeah.
That's right. And, I was contacted by people saying, hey, what's going on with these results? I know I voted for you there.
Really? Did you have to get witnesses? Have you had had letters, and you've had letters and all that kind of statutory declaration they have signed?
I guess it'll all come out.
All right. I get it. We're going to. No, I want to keep digging now because
we probably should have talked about this before. Yeah, it's an interesting story, and everyone around the electorate, locals, know about it.
Okay. Well, we'll have you back on and we can discuss that if it all comes out. I wouldn't be surprised if it all gets swept under the rug, but.
Well, it was supposed to come out the second week they were sitting, but then, of course, Parliament got delayed.
Yeah. Okay. So you also had an independent in your electorate. Was that a Teal?
I wouldn't call her an independent. I'd call her a Climate 200 candidate.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, she was a Teal. Yep.
And I in Warringah we have the Queen of the Teals, Zali Steggall, and you can just see that manifesting. They did so well at the last election. Do you think they're going to be? You think they'll expand from this? And
well, if they keep getting the funding that they did from Simon Holmes-a-Court, the sky's the limit, because they can afford to put ads on TV and on radio and in every single so-called independent newspaper. They can spend $1.25 million. Compared to my $8,000.
Yeah,
it's quite a difference
of your own money as well. I don't think people realise that it's out of our own.
I did not spend 1 cent on advertising.
Your campaign, I followed your Facebook page pretty much as soon as it went up. I think I was possibly endorsed before you or something like that. But when your Facebook page came up and I followed it, and it was always exciting to see. Like, always saw you out. I always saw you. It was always a few of you, a few orange shirts next to you, and you're always waving at the camera, kind of like, I'm at this shopping mall, and you were here and you were there everywhere. So it was pretty good to watch, and I can see why. We've spoken a few times now. I mean, we've all, formed a small team. I mean, you're part of team, really. When we, even when we're out at different functions and stuff like that, we'll always, hang out with each other. So I can just see that it was, you were fun to watch, and it was fun to see you, you gave us ideas as well, me ideas.
Yeah.
So I had more budget for my federal campaign, which obviously I lost a lot of, but it was still very worth it in the end. Like you had, I did a little bit of radio advertising, and they were great for me, but I don't know how much impact it actually had, because there's rules. So they're not allowed to advertise any sort of political campaign a week before the actual federal before the election. So that it's kind of like that week that you want to be on radio, and we weren't allowed to be on radio. So, I'm not sure that it was really beneficial anyway. I only ended up with about 8% as well, whereas I think the Labor guy who won was about 46%. I think that was the number. So that's, we're still a far cry away, even with all the freedom parties. But were you, you had a Teal candidate. Did you have a liberal seated member?
Nationals.
Oh, okay.
It's a big national seat, and it has been since Federation, pretty much.
And they're loyal voters, the Nationals, aren't they? They kind of stick with that.
Yes. Well, look, the sitting member did make a point, and on the record, so in the newspaper, local newspaper, saying that, because they were questioning, saying, it was close between you and the Teal independent. And he said, actually, no, the One Nation candidate stole my votes. And I have to agree, because we're both conservatives, we were sharing the conservative vote, whereas the Teal was the left vote with the Greens and Labor. And looking at comparing the 2019 election to the 2022 election, both the Labor and the Greens votes were down. And those down votes went to the Teal instead. I guess that $1.25 million, paid off.
Big time.
Yeah, but so I stole some of the Nationals' vote, there's no doubt, the Conservative vote.
So what are you doing now after the election?
Well, the mandates got dropped, so I'm back teaching full-time and loving it. So glad to be back. I was so keen. I still had my Year 12 jumper that says Miss A on the back, and I just couldn't get it on quick enough. I was so keen, and the kids, the students, I should say, were, where have you been, Miss? Where did you go? Did you try and become president? And no. Prime Minister, no. I ran for the federal election, yes. We saw your signs up, they said. Oh, that's great, But it's just, I really was missing the place, and the job had been stolen from me. So it's been lovely to have it back,
And how were you received by other teachers and other parents as well?
Yeah, look, I wonder, because I feel there's a bit of a change, and I'm not sure how much of it is because now I'm obviously an anti-vaxxer, or is it because I was One Nation? And traditionally teachers are quite left-leaning Labor voters. So I don't know which of it is. But, yeah, like on the whole, quite welcoming back. So it's been fine. Yeah.
That's good. Did you ever get a quiet tap on the shoulder? Oh, congratulations for what you did.
Yeah. No, I did. I've had a few pull me aside and say, look, we're really proud of you for standing up and sticking to your guns. And look, here you are, you're back. You didn't have to give in. I just do feel really sorry for those who did get blackmailed. That, that's not good.
No, but that's been the design of the program anyway. The whole idea is to make you back down and just submit. So I think people actually get a little bit not scared so much. I haven't got the right word for it, but like scared of us, of the people who stood up, and the people who were really kind of, I guess, in a certain, like, we are extremists. Anyone who kind of stood up and was prepared to pack it all in and see how they went, right, just to not be blackmailed, that shows a strength that a lot of people, or a lot of courage that people just don't have. And I think what happens is you have to remember that when people kind of look at you a bit funny, or they might not talk to you anymore, is because they just realize that you're kind of like on a different plane. And that's what we put it down to. Like, even my wife was a registered nurse, is a registered nurse. She lost her job. Only reason why I didn't lose my job is because I said I was self-employed. So what happened was, but we don't talk to more than two-thirds of our circle that we used to have all gone their own ways. So it's just, I think when you stand strong and you have a firm belief in anything, that's where you get, they talk about haters. That's a hater. Your haters hate. And it's only because you've done something, you've done something right, because you've stood for it. And that's why you will have that division. So I don't take it personally at all. I don't really care. It's just, I decided to do what I wanted to do, just like you did, just like Stephen did, and a whole heap of us. And, we're the line in the sand.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So you're also doing a lot of writing as well.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that? Because we're hearing some very good things about the way that you write.
Yes. So the day before I was endorsed as the One Nation candidate for Cowper, I also got another job instead of my teaching job, obviously, writing for the Australian Free Independent Press Network. And they have a number of journalists around the country. They also do lots of live streaming. There we go. Yes. Yep. And, so that's been fantastic. I'm not an English teacher. Luckily for me, one of my good friends, Alison, does a lot of editing for me. And if it wasn't for her, I think my articles wouldn't be quite as good. So, and it's just all about getting some truth out there. And that's what the Australian Free Independent Press Network is all about. That was started by a guy called Luke, and he does an amazing job just trying to get truth and true stories out there. So
I want to just focus on this article that you've written here about the Rain-making Act of 1967. Now, we're all told that this cloud seeding stuff that we see in the sky is all conspiracy theory, and we shouldn't be taking notice of it. But can you go into a little bit of depth? What is the Rain-making Act of 1967?
Yeah, right. So that's something you can look up online. It's there as a PDF document. It's from Victoria. Now, so I worked as a hydrographer for 10 years, and it's quite a male-dominated industry. So, but I would go along to these conferences. They would have them every year or two, hydrography conferences, and there was always someone that would get up and talk about cloud seeding. And, obviously we're talking a lot about water and water flows, and, someone would get up and talk about cloud seeding and talk about how fantastic they thought it was, that it could increase rainfalls in certain catchments in certain areas. But then they would also talk about the downside, how, you can make it, rain over there, but you're going to cause a drought over here, sort of thing. So there's always consequences, because you are just drawing moisture across from one area to the other. It is weather manipulation.
I was always curious about that personally. Is that are they physically making more rain, or is it actually just changing the weather pattern or cycle?
So there's a few different ways, a few different things. There's cloud seeding. So that's where you're taking clouds that are already there and you're seeding them with silver iodide or other chemicals to try and promote more rain, to increase it and to bring it on. But then there's cloud formation as well, and there's other forms of geoengineering. There's the SCOPEX as well, which is a big thing that Bill Gates is interested in and has been funding with Harvard University. And again, I just link up all these articles in my article. That's where I get the information from, and just talk about it. And I guess I'm just asking the question, like, why aren't people talking about these man-made activities or human activities that we're doing, when they're talking about everything else, like the burning of fossil fuels, when they're discussing the climate change debate, surely everything that is being done to our environment, to our atmosphere, should be discussed. Like everything should be, it's all having an effect on our climate. So it all needs to be part of the discussion. But like you say, it's for some reason it's seen as a conspiracy theory when there's lots of evidence that it's still going on.
Well, I mean, it makes sense when you see the aeroplanes in the sky and there's straight lines behind them. I don't know, but I don't think nature's ever done a straight line in its entirety. So you have a straight line that runs across the sky in different patterns too. So I get people send me photos all the time as well. I've got a lot of supporters and a lot of groups that I'm involved with in the local area, and it's a topic that they talk about. It's a topic that they see. So how is it that you have one plane fly across and doesn't leave a vapor trail or whatever they used to call it? And then you have another plane fly across almost in the, and we can tell with our eyes how high it is and where it is roughly.
Yeah. That's right. On the same day, in the same spot, how is one plane leaving this trail and then it expands and leaves this weird cloud, and then another one's it's just disappearing. So you can't just say it's condensation, because why is one plane doing it and the other plane not?
That's right.
Not only that, a few days later it rains or pours down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And, the fact that it's so secretive, well, apparently, I don't know. There's a lot of information online. You can find it, like the Rain-making Act. It's all there, but it's just so strange that it's not forming part of this conversation about climate change.
This is the Victorian government website that I pulled this document from.
That's right. In 1967, so decades ago. And there's lots of articles. United Arab Emirates has had a big program. You can see articles from the beginning of this year where they've got a big cloud seeding, rain-making project going on. There was 2016 in Tasmania with Hydro Tassie. So people can look up that story. So they were seeing cloud seeding on a Sunday, and flood warnings had already been put in place or put out there to the public. And then there was floods, and 2 people unfortunately passed away, and there was millions of dollars worth of damage. And then they had to go to court about it. Because
that was recently, wasn't it?
2016. So people were asking questions about that. Why were they cloud seeding when there'd already been a flood warning put in place? What was going on?
Well, if you want to look at this positively and you say, okay, well, they've got this legislation in place, one of the things that you raise in some of your writing is, why can't this be used in a positive way when we have drought or bushfire? So they don't seem to be doing that.
That's right. And these are all questions. And look, Senator Malcolm Roberts has put out the call for evidence. So people can submit their evidence, because he wants to take this evidence and then ask questions in Parliament, which is fantastic that he's being a true representative of the people.
Yeah, I saw that as well.
Yeah, like people have genuine concerns because there's health concerns around these chemicals, and, people want to know what's going on, because we've had plenty of rain. We don't need any more along the east coast of Australia. Obviously, with Lismore being flooded twice, I believe, this year.
Yep.
Dams
are full. We're having to release water from our dams as well at the moment, and stuff like that. And yet they still have, I believe, the water restrictions are still in place.
Really?
I think so. I think in Campbelltown the water restrictions are still in place, or minor water restrictions. I will double check that actually. Now that I'm making a note because I want to double check that.
Yeah, I know we had water restrictions here for a while, but not anymore.
Yeah, but we definitely want to focus on the facts, and we want to keep away from theories. But this is black and white. Like, if anyone wants to dispute this, we'll go onto the Victorian website, and there's the act right there. The rain, they've called it the Rain-making Control Act.
Yeah,
rain-making. Like, well, it's not natural rain or anything like that. It's you're making it rain. So
and they talk about aircraft and seeding clouds.
yeah.
And like I said, they talked about at these conferences that I would go to. It's a thing. We're not making it up.
Yeah.
And what are the chemicals? What are some of the chemicals that you can? Because you're a chemical engineer, so you'll have a very good understanding of what the chemicals are and what. Do you have an idea of what chemicals are actually in the cloud seeding chemtrails?
Well, the obvious one that they use a lot is silver iodide, but then also dry ice is another one. So there's a lot of it permanently happening, I believe, down in the Snowy Mountains. So, to help with their snow creation. But people have concerns that even, water sampling apparently is picking up extra aluminium, barium, so people just want to know what is being sprayed. I know they're doing cloud brightening. There was a cloud brightening experiment up on the Great Barrier Reef, so to help with the coral up there.
Was that to reflect sunlight?
Yes, because that's the whole thing. The theory is that it will cool the planet by dimming the sun and obviously creating more rainfall. Apparently the cloud brightening is just salt water, they say. That's what they're spraying up there. And, data is revealing that, there's been improvements on the Great Barrier Reef, and possibly it's because of this cloud brightening.
Okay. Sorry, go Stephen.
No, I just wanted to say before anyone turns around and says, oh, well, it's a 1967 legislation, maybe nothing's happened about it. There's been 16 revisions, with the latest one being December 2013. So it's not like this is a dormant piece of legislation that has been overlooked. No, it's been voted on in Parliament for decades. 16 times.
Wow.
And, they are turning themselves inside out, trying to keep the global warming down below 2 degrees. They've signed up to this Paris Agreement, and part of that is, you can read it, climate change mitigation. They've agreed to do that. So I believe that's what they're doing with this geoengineering, but they're just not talking about it. And it needs to be discussed, because are they taking it too far? And at what cost are they cooling the planet if it's actually flooding people's farms and people's homes?
And if you cool it too much and bring on an ice age, a smaller ice age, even like a mini ice age or something like that, you're actually really in trouble, because, plants don't grow in the ice. The cattle goes away. The food supply gets smaller and smaller in an ice age. So, if you, I don't actually think we need there's 3 things to find life on Earth, on a planet. You need water, and you need sunlight, and you need oxygen, or something like that. That makes a livable planet. And what happens is, I don't see how the sun gives life to Earth. We know that. Okay, if you're reflecting the sunlight away from the Earth, I can't see how that's a good thing, actually, at all, personally.
And how much money is this costing? Again, there's footage of American, I think he was part of the CIA. I don't know his name, but he talks about it and talks about the millions of dollars. Oh, we can do this for $10 million. It's a lot of money, and we're trusting just a few of these so-called experts with our climate. We're trusting that they know what they're doing and that it's all tickety-boo, but, how do we know? And again, no one's really talking about it, so it's all just, I think it's all just very weird, and let's just put everything out on the table and let's talk about exactly what's going on,
Let's get a round table discussion happening. Let's talk. If we knew exactly what was going on, then you can have scientists, specialists in all fields regarding anything like climate, water.
Unfortunately, it's looking a lot like the whole COVID scenario, where just one side of the argument is getting talked about, and the rest is getting shut down and censored.
Yeah.
And that's not good for anybody. We're just trusting this one narrative, one story to be it, and then everything else is censored. That's not healthy. That's not a democracy. No. What is it?
Oh, it's one-sided, isn't it? It's basically communism, or it's, totalitarianism, They make the decisions, they carry out the plan, and they do it, and then you just live with the consequences.
That's right.
That's why our government set up the way it is. Like Adam and I and Rebecca were just in Parliament this week, and that's why you have question time, and that's why you have an opposition and a crossbench. It's to debate these issues, and obviously then that goes to an election. It's all meant to be transparent and out in the public sphere, to be able to.
That's why you have parliamentary privilege, so you don't have to get caught up mincing words. You're not allowed to be personal to somebody across the floor. You're not allowed to, be insulting, but you don't have to mince your words. You're allowed to say what you need to say, and that's part of the privilege, so you can get down to the nitty-gritty. And we saw plenty of that, didn't we, on that day?
It's embarrassing how they act, really. When you see it, I mean, obviously everyone knows what question time is like, but when you're actually sitting there within the chamber and you see grown adults carrying on like the way they do, unnecessarily, it doesn't seem to make sense to me either, unless it's just an action of trying to get under someone else's skin and put them off guard a little bit. It doesn't achieve anything.
They seem to go out of their way not to answer the questions. I've seen it with our local state member here in Oxley. I just was really embarrassed that this is when she was the water minister. I'm not surprised she got thrown off it, because she wouldn't even answer the questions. It was all about how much they were selling to overseas interests, and she wouldn't even answer the question.
Wow.
And just made a joke about, I can't put it in my suitcase and take it. Just answer the question. And she just would then, instead of answering the question, attack the person asking the question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it shuts debate down.
Again, just censorship.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of water and state issues, there's a proposal in your area that's similar to the Snowy Hydro 2. Can you speak a little bit more about that?
Yes, so it's it's called Proposed Oven Mountain Pumped Energy Hydro Scheme, and it's to be built off river from the Macleay River. Lots of locals are concerned. They want to take 6 gigalitres of water, which, people don't realise how much that is. It's 2,400 Olympic-sized swimming pools. And the way it's going to work is it's 2 reservoirs, a big one at the bottom and a smaller one at the top, and the water is pumped up during off-peak time and then let go during peak time. The bottom reservoir is the same size as 10 SCGs. So there's concerns that there will be a fair bit of evaporation.
Yep.
So they'll have to keep topping up the river. Now, this river was dry a few years back, dry up river. And here they are wanting to take out that much water for this project. It's $1.5 billion worth of project. It's Chinese owned. It's Alinta Energy, which is actually owned by, I don't know if I want to say it wrong, Choi Fook Wing. I should have written it down. Anyway, they're a jewellery company, and they recently came up in an ABC article about ties, proposed ties with the triads, the Chinese triads gangs and the casino situation. Okay. So, look, locals are concerned because we're trusting this company with our water supply. Some people have suggested they just want to dig up there because they are a jewellery company and there's rumours of gold up there.
Ah, right.
That's the other issue. It's a very it's a pristine environment up there. There's been mining in the past and there was arsenic and antimony contamination issues with the water supply with one of the towns up there. So they had to truck the water into Bellbrook over 10 years ago because the water supply got contaminated.
Oh, God.
Okay.
So people are concerned about that. It's also very culturally sensitive up there. It's an Aboriginal, it was an Aboriginal massacre site, and there's traditional camping grounds up there.
Okay.
And the geology up there, I hear from the caving, there's a caving club, and they know a lot about geology. They have concerns that it's not going to be structurally, it's not going to have structural integrity building these reservoirs in that geology, in those rocks. There will be seepage and leakage, and there's lots of landslips that happen along the roads. So there's all these issues, and, you know, it feels like hardly any locals even have heard about this project. You know, I go around and talk to people about it, and when they hear, they're quite shocked, and they think, well, how can we stop this? But, you know, you ask the local council and they say, oh, it's not even in our local government area, you know, because it's not. But then it's us that are going to suffer because it's our river. We're downstream from it.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Well,
lots of
Not only that,
scary
can't
as
they
well.
look at the one they're building out in the snowy mountains that's not working, that they've gone way over
No.
budget? And
That's right. It's totally blown the budget, and it's just a huge white elephant. Apparently, they're very inefficient, these systems, these pumped hydro systems. So,
Well, you're a hydrographer. You know how much energy it takes to pump water.
That's right.
You know, you're talking about pumping 6 gigalitres of water up a mountain. Okay, then what happens is, if they're going to use green energy to do it, so what happens is, if it's when the sun's shining and the winds are blowing and the batteries are fully charged, they can use that energy to pump in off-peak time, you know, 3 o'clock in the morning, pump this water up a mountain. And then what happens is, when it's raining, and then they're going to let it run down the mountain and make more energy and store it into more batteries. It doesn't.
Well, they call it a battery. They say it's like a battery because
it's stored energy when it goes down and turns the turbines. Okay, because you can have a battery of superheated salts, and then that produces heat, and you can use that heat to evaporate water and turn a turbine. That's also a battery. So you have all these hot piles of molten salt around the place at, you know, 5,000 degrees or whatever it is. Like that, now that would cause global warming, as far as I'm concerned. But what I was going to say is, it's a bit scary too, because it seems like any energy system or any sort of infrastructure that's resolved as green energy, they don't have to jump through the hoops. Like, if you wanted to put a coal-fired power station up the mountain, okay, I mean, gee whiz, they would have to have report after report after report after report on everything. But when it seems to be this green energy, no, you can go clear cut of rainforest. We can let you put a wind tower up there, and yes, your windmill blade's 100 meters long, so that you've got a diameter of 200 meters, chopping up birds and all that kind of stuff. And then we know that those propellers only last for 5 to 10 years, and then they have to be changed.
And they don't even recycle them. They just put them in landfill, which is dreadful.
That's what I mean. So when it's green, when it's deemed green energy, they pretty much can do whatever the hell they want. They don't have to worry about any sort of seepage or any sort of water runoff. Oh, this is going to be great for the environment, when in fact it's destroying the environment.
Yeah.
So and we've had heaps of scientists on. We've had, you know, physicists, you know, and you too, being a chemical engineer. I mean, you're no slouch in the knowledge books of how things work. You know, it's a you know, and I'm simple tradie, and I'm learning from people like yourself, and it just makes no sense that there's no real, you know, stringent, you know, appeal for these people to have to form out. They don't have to do any paperwork. They just get it done.
They're just following an ideology, I would argue, and all jumping on the bandwagon. And it's the same with all these electric vehicles they want to produce and to replace the diesel and petrol. And where are they going to get all this lithium from for these batteries? You know, I've heard reports they're going to have to, you know, 10-fold, 100-fold 100 fold with the mining. Yeah, how is that good for the environment?
That's right. I was talking to a person today. Actually, I was at a stand in the park meeting in Campbelltown. They're a great group of people out there, and there's stand in parks everywhere as well. So they're really good, like-minded people that talk about these kind of things as well. And she was like, and she was a newbie, and she's like, oh, we're going to mine. I don't mind like mining as a whole, but you have to mine. And I said to her, you have to mine so much to get batteries. Whereas if you mine coal, you'd simply digging coal out of the ground and taking it to the power station. You don't have to treat it. You don't really have to do anything particularly with it. You just burn it. It just comes out of the ground. And whereas lithium, you have to put it in acid baths to extract it from the soil or something like that to create the lithium. Is that something? Am I right on saying that?
That's right. There's a lot to be dug up to get that quantity of lithium that is needed. And at the moment, most of it's done overseas, so in China. So, again, we're relying on another country for our energy. And, if anyone's going to learn anything from what's going on with Russia, we shouldn't be relying on another country. I think Australia is big enough and well-resourced enough to just rely on ourselves, we could do that properly with our coal, nuclear, if we want to go there and look at that. I mean, maybe it should be considered. I don't know.
We're 100% on that. Well, we're advocates. I think I can safely say we're advocates for it, or at least we're advocates for the discussion we put onto the table. Get rid of the ban.
Talk about,
and get nuclear energy on the table.
Well, 80% of renewables are made in China.
That's right.
Strategically, that's madness.
That's right. Yeah. And I think most people, if they stopped and thought about it, would agree. But it's almost like that part of it is kept secret.
Yeah.
That's right. It's not part of the big story.
People should be worried. Like, people, if they really knew what was happening with China and the way they're slowly strategically placing themselves around Australia, people would be worried of, I'm not saying to, dig your hole and get your your blast suits ready and all that kind of stuff. But I'm saying, like, it's, we are an energy rich country. We are a precious metal rich country, that we are actually hot property for any sort of global power who would want us. So what happens is they, with them reclaiming they're reclaiming land and have airfields up in the Northern Territory, up in the international waters up there. And there was an article about that where one of our planes got chaffed from one of their planes because we were flying, just watching what was going on in international airspace. Then the Solomon Islands, where they're moving down on that side, and they're also moving down on the side of Western Australia as well. So it's not like they're not slowly making a move. It's not hostile as yet. But what I'm saying is, if people realise that how much we are handing over to China and how much power we are giving them over us, and it's not going to be much different to how much power Russia, like as you said, Europe has given to Russia as far as power supply goes. We would be definitely, I think more people would be standing up saying, hey, let's maybe get nuclear on the table, because people don't realise that we have I think second or third largest uranium supply.
Largest.
Is it the largest uranium supply?
I think it's 1/3 of the world's uranium is in Australia.
That's where I got the third. That's the 1/3 of the uranium supply. So we can power ourselves basically into the future for thousands of years using our own uranium. So, and I love this figure. I'm not sure if you know it or not, but Pamela Jones said this, and she was the last one of our guests we've had on, that in your lifetime, if we use nuclear power to power Australia, in one person's lifetime, all they would, from birth to death, using uranium, you would produce only one Coke can or one can size of waste. That little amount, right? Just that big, right, would power your entire life from birth to death using uranium. I mean, that's pretty damn good. I don't see how that's a bad thing, considering, like, we have an 8% ash rate, which is the best in the world of coal. And then what happens is clear cutting hectares and hectares of forest, clear cutting hectares and hectares of bushland for solar, for stuff that's not recyclable, using precious metals, whereas uranium is, as Dr. John Harry said, right, it's radioactive when it comes out of the ground, and basically we can put it back into the ground radioactive. You're not really making any waste from nuclear. So that's why once I learned about it, more of it, I know Stephen was a bit skeptical about it, and he's even started to slowly come around to the idea from our conversations that we need to get this nuclear debate on the table. We need to make Australia energy independent again, which is what you've been saying, and we need to make that happen, and nuclear is the way to go. So,
yeah, because people are all feeling it now, aren't they, with rising energy costs, rising costs of living. People are starting to get really worried because you look at other countries like Sri Lanka. You know, 2 years ago they had really strict, legislations put on them, green policies.
ESG, isn't it? That's what it was the ESG policy with a 98% rating and all that?
Yes. You know, they were banning fossil fuel usage, fertilizers. They had to go organic overnight. 2 years later, and now look at them. They're broke and they can't even feed themselves. They're importing more food than what they're growing. They're struggling.
Yep. They've gone bust. It's a bust country. And basically,
do we want that for Australia? Can't people see and learn from other countries' mistakes?
I've been saying that since the start of from campaigns. We learn as humans. We learn from our parents. As children, we learn from our parents' mistakes. So and what happens is I've even said it myself, just like you said it. Why can't our government look at other countries and really go away from all the ideologies and all the BS that you're seeing, and actually they can get the facts. They have their parliamentary libraries. They can contact other officials. They can get access to parliamentary libraries overseas, see what's actually really happening, and then make decision. But they don't. We've still got what's his name, Chris Bowen. He's still running around the area, signing treaties over in the US, talking about 100% EV vehicles here and there and all that, all over the place. And everyone who's got one of those ESG ratings, 95 or above, that country's actually in trouble. And that's a new fact that I've only just learnt about that recently as well. So and apparently we're on track for that as well.
And that's it. And if you read the newspaper articles about Sri Lanka, all they want to talk about is the unruly population and the corrupt politicians. No mention of the bad choices that they made 2 years ago in terms of all these strict green policies that have just totally ruined the country. So I think the mainstream media has just got a lot to answer for. They're not doing their job. They're not reporting properly on world issues, and they're not giving the full picture. And you just have to ask why. What's going on? Why are they just sticking with this one story?
Well, you and I know. I mean, us three of us would know, and it's a 3-letter organisation that we're not really meant to talk about. But what happens is that we know that it's until the people see it. The people just won't see it, what's going on with it. I just don't understand. I mean, I don't understand how much more evidence you need to actually start questioning the narrative. I mean, the whole thing's fallen apart and it's like a house of cards that's collapsed, and it's still, people will still sign up for it. And I just don't understand. And they still think, the environment, 1 degree temperature this and 1 degree temperature that. And you're like, but, tell me. And I had the same conversation today. I know this is maybe a little bit off topic now, but carbon dioxide, 0.04% of the atmosphere. Humans do 3% of that. All humans on Earth is 3% of 0.04%. And that's what they're trying to fix. And that's what they're trying to change. It just blows my mind.
Yeah, and then they're trying to blame it on the cows.
There's a mad saying that's been going around. You sit in the garage with your car running all night, and I'll sit in the garage next to a cow all night, and we'll see who wakes up in the morning.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I grew up on a dairy farm, and they don't fart that much, honestly. So I don't really understand why they're attacking the cows in the the meat industry. And
it's because they want to make factory-made meat.
That's right. And you have to ask yourself, the timing is very interesting with all this lab-made meat and this push for us to eat bugs, and no thanks, because they're not good for you from what I've read and researched. I'd rather stick with my steak, thanks.
That's right.
Beef,
I'd rather just stick to how it is now. Why does everything have to change all the time?
That's right. Australia produces enough food, double what we need as a country. We don't need to be changing it up and making milk as well. They want to make milk in labs.
Oh, I can't think of anything worse than that, actually. And I just found Norco milk, which I deliciously love, and I've spoken to about it before.
Yes,
it's just amazing
fantastic.
milk.
Yes, the best. Yeah. That's the real deal.
Yeah.
So, Faye, how can if people want to follow you, how can they find you?
Well, I've still got my One Nation page where I post a lot of articles, things, events that are happening around the world that don't necessarily make a whole lot of mainstream media. I share my articles on there as well. I'm doing radio shows as well, community radio. So I do 3 of those a week. 2 of them are at Tank FM here in Kempsey, and one's at 2NVR, which is the Nambucca Valley Radio. So I do live radio and do some real stories interviews, local people with their stories. And, again, just trying to get real stories, true stories out into the media for people to hear and, get a different perspective than what they're getting from the mainstream media.
And is that digital radio? Can people outside of those areas? Yep.
You can live stream it. That's right. Yep.
Awesome. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Yep.
And do you have a website or an email or anything like that? If people, or is Facebook the best way to contact you?
I guess Facebook's the best way. Some of my articles have been printed. So for those people who don't have internet, I guess in general, the older generation. And so I do have my email address on the back of that. So it's just my full name, Faye Aspiotis @yahoo.com.au. And I'll always get back to people if they have questions, and can give them links to do with any of my articles so they can go and do their own research as well to become a bit more educated in these issues.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for coming on. You were one of the standout candidates, in my opinion, during the federal election. And hopefully one day we'll see you pop up again somewhere campaigning, because I think, Adam and I have spoken about it before. We've spoken about it with other guests. Like, we all kind of have this feeling that we were put here for a reason and a purpose. Mm-hmm. And I've heard you speak about that in the past as well. So hopefully it leads to something for you in the future. And thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks for having me. You guys are doing a great job. So keep up the good work.
Well, thanks, Faye. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you everyone for watching. Now we've got some special news and announcement. So for Adam and Rebecca, what are you guys organising, Adam?
All right, thanks for this, Stephen. But we're going to be organising a fundraiser for the Campbelltown and Woolloomoollee candidates. That's right, One Nation is making a stand in the state, and Rebecca and myself are your candidates for Campbelltown and Woolloomoollee. So we're doing a fundraiser at Ingleburn RSL. There's going to be some really good events there. There's going to be we're going to have Mark Latham and Roberts MLCs. They're the leaders of One Nation for the state. Mark and Robert will also be doing a speech. You'll hear from myself and Rebecca as well. We're going to be having a 3-course meal. There's going to be some light entertainment. I think we'll just have some music playing. We're going to have some raffles happening. And we're also going to have a golden ticket or envelope major prize. That major prize has been donated to us by a lovely company up in the Hunter Valley. And that's going to be something that is well worth participating in. So that would be the golden ticket major prize, and there's other raffles also happening. So we've got some businesses around the area that are going to donate a few things here and there for us to auction off, or raffle off anyway. So yeah, definitely check this out, print this off, scan the QR code that takes you to the link to the Eventbrite website. The Eventbrite website is where you can purchase and fill out all your information that we need to make it all legitimate, and we can find out if you need, any special food requirements. But it should be a great night to get in front of, your One Nation candidates and the leaders of One Nation for New South Wales. And, get in there and just be part of it. Have your voice heard, because, I'm Campbelltown's voice at the moment, and that's what we're trying to be. That's what our slogan's going to be, looks like. So that's what we're doing. So
it's going to be really exciting. If you ever wanted to meet Mark Latham or Rod Roberts, this is the chance, and to meet Adam and Rebecca as well. $100 for a 3-course for a meal is a pretty good value, I would think. And I always say the secret of all of this is that candidates for One Nation fund their own campaigns. So any donations that they can get or fundraising opportunities like this go a long way in helping Adam and Rebecca, really stand up for the communities and represent the people of Campbelltown and Wallandilly.
Absolutely. And, our state focus is going to be on, energy, economy, and education. And, we're working towards our local, things that need to be done as well, some roads that need to be fixed up. I know that One Nation's looking at, another hospital out southwest Sydney area. So there's a really good state can make a big difference in our local communities. So if you are, One Nation supporter, get out there and, show us your support, because we're doing everything we can for you guys. And we need to get out there and get this show on the road. Election's up in March next year.
All right. So, scan the code, jump on there, and we'll hopefully see you out there. I'll be there as well.
Oh, yeah, don't forget, Steve, Trippy's going to be MCing the night as well, so you get to put him up on stage and we can,
Yeah, if you thought I could stumble upon my words on this podcast, wait till you see me live on stage. So
don't worry, we're all going to be stumbling on our words. Don't worry, it's just the way it is. But it just goes to show that we're real people, and we're real candidates, and the governance is meant to be by the people, and that's what Stephen said it many times in the podcasts. You can't
by representation.
That's right. Ruled by representation. And, I'm a tradie. I've been in the area all my life. And if you want true representation, then somebody like me in Parliament is probably better than some lawyer or some person who's come up through the ranks and just been a career politician. So, I've been out in the real world. I've had to make businesses survive. I've had to feed the family, and I've had to change jobs. I've had to suck up to the boss. I've had to do it all, just like you guys have to do. So it's just real representation is what we're about. So anyway, if you can come along, we'd love to see you, and we'll meet then.
Yeah. All right. Thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.